Round one of the 2025 NFL Draft is officially over, so coming up on today's San Francisco 49ers report, going to hand out my round one grade for the San Francisco 49ers after they drafted edge rusher out of Georgia, Mykell Williams at number 11. We'll also take a look to day two, what selections do the Niners have coming up in round 2 and 3, and we'll take a look at the best players available. As for the Niners pick at 11 overall, I had said yesterday on Wednesday, I thought there was a good chance that Mykell Williams could be in play for the Niners with the 11th overall pick. He fits the mold of what the Niners look for in edge rushers. He can play the wide nine. He can set the edge. He can get after the quarterback. He's very athletic. This is a Robert Saleh type of player. Interestingly enough, Jed York tweeted out, Robert Saleh is back in the building. So it looks as though Robert Saleh had a lot to say here. And you think about what John Lynch had said earlier in the week. We look for edge rushers who have the talent level and the type of traits that Mykell Williams has. And it ended up going in that direction. I'm so happy that the Niners took Williams over a player like Shamar Stewart, who didn't have a lot of college production. I personally really like Jalen Walker out of Georgia. Instead, the Niners go with his Georgia teammate. And Williams is a high-quality run stopper. He has great power, a strong bull rush. He doesn't have a lot of moves outside of that. That is something that he's going to have to work on. He is good with the bull rush and rip, though, and the physical skill set is certainly there. Will he have the pass rush production come about early on in his NFL career? Or is he just going to have to rely on being a massive player? Because at the NFL level, you're not going to be able to win just strictly with brute force, strength, and physicality. Something else I do like, though, with Mykell Williams is the overall activity level. And the Niners really last year at the defensive end spot and just all across the defense, they did have a defensive end who could really set the edge opposite of Nick Bosa. They did have a lot of players who were good against the run. And it's very tricky in that regard when you run the wide nine to find players who can flourish in that system in stopping the run. And that's why the Niners got gashed going up against opposing running attacks. That's why the yards after contact numbers were porous for this defense. And that's why they really struggled time and time again against the run last year. And when that happens, the opposing offense is able to control the clock, wear your defense down. You keep the opposing offense on the sideline. And this is a Niners offense that wasn't able to find their momentum. They couldn't gel. They couldn't find any rhythm. And so the Niners have really made it a point to address that somewhat this offseason, but obviously with the selection of Mykell Williams. And there's a lot to like. You know, you could point to the college production and say, okay, well, at that size of what he brings to the table, why did Mykell Williams struggle with some of his college production, right? Why wasn't he able to pop off? He should have been able to put up a lot more production. 6.5 TFLs, 6.5 TFLs, 8.5 TFLs in 3 consecutive seasons, 4.5 sacks, 4.5 sacks, and 5 sacks in each of his 3 seasons at Georgia. And of course, I get those concerns because we're talking about a player who, at his pro day, measured in at 6'5", 267. His arms are more than 34 inches, a wingspan of nearly 83 inches. He clocked a 4.77 40-yard dash. You certainly see that pursuit speed. You see that speed when he gets a runway at that defensive end spot. You just see it pop on tape. But then you're like, okay, if you're that big, if you're that physical, if you're that athletic, why couldn't you get to the quarterback more? Why couldn't you be more disruptive in making plays against the run and just highly impactful plays? And that is fair. Like, Mykell Williams is a young player who does need to develop. His ceiling is extremely high. It's interesting, though, he is built a lot like Aldon Smith. And Aldon Smith, I think in college, had 14.5 sacks. Mykell Williams had 14. I think the Niners clearly like the athletic traits that he has, and this is a little bit of a projection for what he could become, but it is a similar playing style. There's an argument to be made that Mykell Williams is the top edge-setting defensive end or edge rusher in this class. He could be one of the top run-stopping defensive ends in this class. And I just think the Niners like the foundation of skills and the athleticism that they can work with here. And they just wanted to bring in a player to help change the identity of this defense, right? Last year they were soft. They were poorly coached. They didn't tackle well. They didn't have enough juice. They didn't have enough overall talent, especially in the trenches. And they had some players, especially at defensive tackle, who didn't fit the scheme. And so with Robert Saleh coming back, I think they're trying to change that narrative, change that tune for a defense that lost its identity during the 2024 season. Another reason why Mykell Williams may not have popped off as far as his production, he was playing on some loaded Georgia defenses throughout his career. He did start for a team that won the national championship as a freshman. That's pretty telling. But for instance, this past year, he only played 33.5 defensive snaps per game. The year before that in 2023, it was even lower than that, 29.3, and then 27.1 in 2022. So with more development, more fine-tuning, good coaching, given the skill set that he has, with more playing time, we're talking about a player in Mykell Williams who down the road could end up being very good and putting up massive numbers, and right away, he already has an NFL body type to be a part of this defensive line rotation. And hopefully, with him being the 11th overall pick, he's going to be able to play right from the jump. Looks the part, NFL frame, long arms. He's going to be able to disconnect from some offensive linemen. He can use that crazy strength and raw strength to get through some NFL offensive linemen. He does have that promising bull swipe, push-pull type of maneuver. He's a violent player who just bullies tight ends. If you try to line up a tight end across from him, and that motor on that backside is something that's really impressive and jumps out on tape. So again, needs to develop. It's a little bit of a projection pick. A lot of these picks in the first round are that, but this is a player who fits what the Niners were looking for at this spot, and he can end up being a really good player. Again, I would have gone with Jalen Walker, but I'm cool with the Mykell Williams selection here, and I'm going to give it a B grade. Not quite an A. I would have given an A grade to an Armand Membu if he fell. Mykell Williams, he gets a fair B grade, and I'm really excited to see his development. I want you to grade the pick of Mykell Williams. What do you got? Let me know down in the comment section right now. A, B, C, D, or F. Be sure to join that conversation as always and embrace that debate. Share your football knowledge with me. We'll take a look at the Niners' day 2 picks, best players available, because there are some really talented players who are still on the draft board. But first, tonight's 49ers report. Burning the midnight oil here, literally. Sponsored by our friends at GameTime. Last-minute tickets at the lowest price guaranteed. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime, and with this app, you can buy tickets faster and easier than ever. You get the best seats at the lowest price guaranteed. Prices drop as the event gets closer. And the more that you wait until the start of the event, you could save up to 60% off buying these last-minute tickets to go to sporting events, concerts, comedy shows, theater events, and a whole lot more. With GameTime Picks, you make last-minute ticket buying easier than ever by quickly highlighting the best deals in the stadium. And you can save even more when you choose a section and you let GameTime choose the seats. That's all a part of the zone deals function. The all-in pricing tool, toggle that. It'll show you your total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. And GameTime gives you the lowest price guaranteed. Otherwise, they will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the app, create an account, use the code CHATSPORTS, CHATSPORTS, for $20 off. Terms apply. First purchase only. Download the GameTime app today. Last-minute tickets. Lowest price guaranteed. I do like where the Niners are positioned here going into rounds 2 and 3 because they can continue to add some really good players. They will be on the clock in the second round at 43 overall. They have a third rounder at 75, and then thanks to a compensatory pick, they're back on the board at number 100. So in total, that's 4 picks inside the top 100 for a team that has a lot of needs to crush it with this draft class, and they need these players to pan out, which is why you're hoping that Mykell Williams can be one of those guys and a big factor for this team in 2025 and beyond. And hopefully Nick Bosa is going to be able to teach him a thing or two about his craft as a pass rusher. As for the best players available here, I still think the Niners need to double down along the defensive line. They don't need to go edge rusher again, but defensive tackle is a huge need that they need to address multiple times in this draft. And so I think in round 2, the Niners go defensive tackle or offensive tackle. Will Johnson, the cornerback out of Michigan, who is a big-time playmaker at that corner spot, is still on the board. That's our draft expert, Tom Downey's 8th best player in this draft class. The Niners could also go corner if he continues to fall, and a lot of NFL analysts who cover the draft had Will Johnson going to the Niners at number 11. Read and react type of corner who can jump routes, and when he gets his hands on the football, he can take it back to the crib. I highly doubt he's going to last until 43. If he does, that's a name to watch, though, because the Niners have a need at corner. But his lack of workouts in the pre-draft process because of a couple of different lower body injuries, a big concern. Mike Green is one of my favorite edge rushers in this class, 23 TFLs and 17 sacks last year. More of a stand-up pass rusher. I think that you can make it work in this wide 9. Twitch, bend, speed, explosion coming off that edge spot. Good against the run. I think that he can also hold up against the run, too, despite him only being 250 pounds, although Niners probably don't go that route because they went Mykell Williams. Luther Burns, some people are lower on him. I'm higher on him. You have the safety, Nick Eman-Wari out of South Carolina, who's an athletic freak. Donovan Ezaraku is a long-armed, highly productive edge rusher out of Boston College. Travion Henderson, good running back out of Ohio State. We saw 2 RBs go in round 1. That was Ashton Genty to the Raiders, and then Omarion Hampton to the Chargers. Carson Schweichinger, linebacker out of UCLA. I wouldn't be shocked if the Niners go linebacker there if he's still on the board. Xavier Watson, good safety out of Notre Dame, but I think the Niners are set. And then you look at some of the other players on this list. Again, think about the Niners' needs, right? Defensive tackle, I think they could still use another edge. Left guard, center, right tackle, cornerback, and linebacker. And this player here at number 9, Savone Ravel Jr., probably would have been a first-round pick last year or this year if he didn't tear his ACL. Very talented corner out of East Carolina. Shadur Sanders, maybe the most famous player who is still left. Could the Niners go quarterback at 43? If they don't believe that they're going to get an extension done with Brock Purdy, that would shock me. Trey Amos is a corner who runs a 4.4. Caleb Johnson, the running back out of Iowa. You have Mason Taylor, a really good tight end out of LSU. I would love it. And my number 1 player going into day 2 for San Francisco at 43 is Ariante Ursary. He's massive in size, has a lot of experience. He can replace Trent Williams down the road. He can maybe play right tackle and take over for Colton McKivitz. Good feet, really good production, awesome scheme fit in the outside zone. I hope that he falls to the Niners at number 43 because I think that he can be one of the top offensive tackles in this class. You have Benjamin Morrison, the cornerback out of Notre Dame, and then JT Tuimoloau, the edge rusher out of Ohio State. For the positions that I think the Niners are going to need to target on day 2, let's start with defensive tackle. You have some good ones here. TJ Sanders out of South Carolina. Darius Alexander is 24, but a really good player. The Niners brought him in on a pre-draft visit out of Toledo, a small school guy who's a hell of a player. Alfred Collins is a freak athlete from Texas. You have Deion Walker out of Kansas. Omar Norman Lott. When you turn on the Tennessee tape, sometimes you'd see James Pierce flash. Other times you'd be like, who's that other guy? Omar Norman Lott. He's a really good player. Round 2, round 3 player. Joshua Farmer, the defensive tackle out of Florida State. Shamar Turner, good player from Texas A&M. You have CJ West, who's a little bit shorter, but is a load to handle along the interior out of Indiana. And the defensive tackles there, I like some of those players for San Francisco. I'd go Ariante Ursary as my favorite player, and then you start to look at some of those defensive tackles as well. There is depth at that position. Niners could go guard. Tate Ratledge is a phenomenal player. Marcus Bow out of Purdue has tackle experience. I think he's a guard at the next level. Jonah Savania out of Arizona. You have Wyatt Milam out of West Virginia. And then the offensive tackles. Ariante Ursary, he's really the final tackle before there's a really big dip to that next wave. I would even think about trying to trade up for Ursary if that's what you need to do. Ozzie Trapillo out of Boston College, Cameron Williams, and Logan Brown, the other top offensive tackles available. So Niners could go in a couple of different directions. You're at 43.75 and 100. You have some good draft capital coming up on Friday with rounds 2 and 3. What position should the Niners draft next? I'd say offensive tackle or defensive tackle. You let me know.